database administration and security. Okay, here's an interesting story about this. I was at my desk one time, just getting the keyboard away, and phone rings, and the receptionist on the hall says, "Hey, David, there's some guys here, and they got ties on." I go, "What?" Okay, so I look up. Sure enough, these guys are coming down the hall, three-piece suit with ties, and they come around the corner and say, "You, David?" I go, "Yeah." And they flip out their FBI badges. I go, "Holy shit, what's going on here?" Okay, as I'm thinking about this, they asked me, "Are you the database manager for a certain database?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "Well, we arrested this individual and we found some of your information on his machine. Somebody had hacked into the database I had and had stolen information. Now the database I had was collecting historical information, and we were using this to track expenses. And we were also using the tracking of expenses as a predictive element that if we were paying X amount for this process, if we build another project, then we could compare costs, so we kind of could guess at the expense of future events based on past events. And this guy had captured this information and was selling it, so that way people could hedge their bets on stuff they were going to bid. So anyway, the reason I'm saying that is the information I was collecting is an asset. It is an intangible, tangible event. So even though to us it was just a means of doing my work, someone thought that had value. So they were selling the information I had. And another good example of information that has asset, you can go down to the state health department and you can actually buy a list of all the people, of all the newborns in a certain time frame. Okay, so you go out and buy the information of all the newborns. You have name, address, parents, whatever. You can mail them a little card and say, "Congratulations, parent. Here is a coupon for diapers." All right? So once again, that information has value. Now the question is, how long will that family need diapers? 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years? Anyway, the thing that I want to get to is that assets have a shelf life. Just like that information from the health department, that information, although valuable, if it sits on the shelf, becomes stale. Just like a gallon of milk goes stale. The other thing you have to remember is, going back to the gallon of milk, is that when you go to the grocery store and you pull out the gallon of milk, what you do not see is the infrastructure behind that milk that helped it get to that. You don't see the guy that put it on shelf, you don't see the guy who maintains the refrigerator, you don't see the truck driver, you don't see the gas truck, you don't see the farmer, you don't see the cow. So there's a huge infrastructure that has to be maintained. So I'm looking here at the idea of maintaining that system that gets that milk to the refrigerator. Data is like that. It has a lot of management that's required for it. Now, what's interesting of the management of data is when I began this life, computers per se were not that prevalent. So when I began, I bought the machine, I bought the software, I loaded the data. I was the all-in-one guy. One size fits all. That was my job. But as time went on, it became apparent that I could not both do the hardware and software and application support. It was just too much. So as time went on, what happened is we had to divide the work. It became somebody controlled the machine, somebody controlled the database, and somebody controlled the data. And that was the evolutionary process of what was going on. And then you had the users, the people who were going to use the data. Now what's interesting about that is that as things go on, people always come, employees always come, and employees always go. So there's always a training event that has to happen. So one of the things that we were caught up in is how do you develop a process to both maintain the hardware, maintain the software or the database, and maintain the data, and then maintain the users. So these are the systems that have evolved over time. And in some event, there's a lot of management issues. So which of the users will have access to data? There are the executives, the managers, the supervisors, and the employees. So you wind up having 4 levels. You have the executives, the managers, the supervisors, and the employees. So each of these individuals have to be managed at a separate level. Now, as this goes on, one of the things that was happening is that I was getting monthly reports on employee usage. Every month I got a report on Joe, Blow, or Mary. Everybody was having usage, so I knew who was using the computer. And initially I just another piece of paper I got to read, and I really wasn't paying attention to it. But every now and then you get bored, so I was reading this stuff to see what happened. I noticed one particular employee had a very high usage rate. Okay, well that's interesting. And I didn't think anything of it initially, but after a while I go, why is this individual have such a high computer usage rate? I mean, if I look at that category, these were a bunch of engineers. When I look at this category of engineers, one particular employee just had a very high level of usage outside the norms, and I got curious. And the more I looked into it, I noticed that what he was doing was he was actually looking at project information from other engineers. Well, I said, well, that's not a big issue. But then why is this individual sticking his nose where it doesn't belong? Well, the more I thought about it, I said, well, let me see what's happening. So I didn't want to get, it could have been a natural event, it could have been okay, but I said, well, let me look into it. And I noticed that this guy was only doing this, looking into other people's information when they were at lunch. Well, that's kind of weird. Why is this individual looking at someone's information when they're at lunch? That didn't seem normal. So the bottom line is that we found out that this individual was actually selling this information to other individuals, once again, to hedge their bet on contract negotiations. So I stumbled across this by accident because as I got my usage, I noticed one employee had a big spike, and that turned out to be what was happening. So you can do a lot of stuff with the management, the administration, and the security. And as a business grows from a small event to a large event, initially, let's say we take a doctor's office in Central Austin or Central in 1995. Well, I mean, they're more interested in getting started. They're not really interested in, a big massive database. So in the year 2000, they opened up a South office, and then in 2005, they opened up a North Austin or a North office, and then in 2013, they're going to go maybe some suburban city, some outlet there. Now, you notice that over time, you have 3 or 4 different events that you have to manage. And initially, one of the things is businesses really don't think about how they're going to manage growth. So they hire you to fix this problem. So understand that part of the issue here in database management and security is that initially there was no concept for management. And then as it grows, it does become an issue. But the infrastructure was never set in place to do administration, to do security, which means that you kind of have to backward engineer something that's going to work. And that concludes chapter 14.